Please just wait for the, go ahead, sorry. Please just wait for the microphone to come around for you. And if we don't know you, please state your name and affiliation. That'd be helpful. We'll start with Bill Doyle.
Hold on, Bill. I almost brought Coach Jamie Young in here and introduced him as the 17th pick. To James Young. Go ahead, sorry.
Bill Doyle, Worcester Telegram Gazette. Brad, you drafted two guys who are scorers and not high percentage shooters. Do you feel you can work with them and make them higher percentage shooters?
Well, James's MO is he's always been a scorer. So to start with him, and he's a guy that shot it at 35% from three to 47% from two. He's got a shot that can shoot it deeper. He's got a stroke that is just going to get better and better. He's a young guy, but he is. We felt like he was a very, very undervalued scoring wing in this draft. Everybody in the room had him ranked a lot higher than 17th, so we were surprised that he was available at 17th, and thrilled that he was available at 17th. Marcus is a guy that I think his shooting is much better than his percentages. He can still improve in that area, but unlike a lot of shooters that struggle in college, depth is not going to be an issue with him. He'll get good range on his shot. He's got good arc on his shot. He's got pretty good mechanics. He's worked hard on it. In our last workout that we had with him, he reeled off about 4 or 5 in a row in live competition from three with the games on the line. So shooting is something that I think he will improve and get better at. You know, I think it's, hey, the NBA is a transition for anybody, but I think you can really work with both those guys from that standpoint. You know, I feel like there's two guys that help, you know, make our team better. And so, you know, that's what tonight's about.
Baxter Holmes, Boston Globe. Brad, what does Marcus mean for Rondo? Can they coexist? How do you manage, you know, those two?
I don't think there's any doubt. Yeah, I mean, they can play together. I think it would be great for Marcus to have a guy like Rondo to look up to learn from. Not many guys get that opportunity, especially early on in the draft like this, and in an early pick. But you know, Marcus is another guy that you know, I was thrilled that he was there at 6 because he's physically ready to play and he competes every single minute of every single day, and that will do nothing but help your team regardless of what position he's playing at. You know, I expect him to play some off the ball. I expect him to play some with the ball, but he's a young guy, and you know, he's going to be playing, you know, with a guy there that has been in the league for a long time that can really help him learn about it. And so I think it's great. I think it'll be great for both of them.
Have you communicated with Rondo at all about Marcus?
I haven't talked to him. We talked about him the other day when we were watching the workout together, just talking. But it was, you know, we were just shooting the breeze more than we were necessarily evaluating players. But no, I haven't talked to him since we made the pick. You know, again, I think Rondo can play with a lot of different people, and you know, it's kind of like we've talked about in the past. If you can find guys that are tough, that are versatile defenders, we think Marcus is a better shooter than he shot, and we think that he gives you the ability to guard 1, 2, and then sometimes 3. Like you watch his games, Baxter, he's a guy that can switch a lot of screens because he's a 230-pound guard. So he gives you a lot of versatility on the wing for a guy that's a little bit shorter, especially with his 6'9" wingspan.
Mark Murphy, Boston Herald. Brad, Marcus got some criticism for going back for his sophomore year, and some people feel that, you know, he just gave people more opportunity to sort of pick apart his game. Do you feel he stayed the same? Do you feel he got better?
You know, I think, first of all, I had never really watched him his freshman year. So when I started watching him was in the summer basketball from when I started watching Synergy. It's been on the summer basketball that he played with USA Basketball, and then his entire year this year. And, you know, obviously he had some ups and downs this year for what, you know, for a guy that had his level of expectations. And at the same time, you know, he's come in here twice in the last 3 weeks, and we've been we've absolutely fallen in love with his leadership and his work ethic and his spirit and the way that he goes about things. So I'd say as an organization, we're happy he decided to go back to school because he wouldn't be in the Boston Celtics if he didn't. And you know, we think he's got a really high upside. He's still a very young guy.
Any other questions? Back, Paul?
Paul Flannery.
Thanks. Paul Flannery, SB Nation. Brad, where do you see James Young? I mean, he's potentially a little undersized as a three. Do you even see him as in a specific position, just a wing? How do you see him?
Yeah, I've always looked at I've always looked and tried to say, okay, if we have a primary ball handler on the floor, 2 and 3 are pretty interchangeable with regard to actions. With regard to who they can guard, depending on who we're playing, and you just kind of mix and match that way. I think he can play some 2. I think he can play some 3 against certain teams. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But he's a player, and anybody that's a player that can put the ball on the floor and put the ball in the basket is we've talked about our struggles to score, and I think he's a guy that can create offense. And create offense, whether it's versus a closeout or even when he's being defended on the perimeter.
Jared White, CLNS Radio. Brad, do you see potentially a 3-guard lineup with Marcus, Avery, and Rondo?
I think that before I commit to any number of guys, we've got other guys that are on contract too, and so I see a highly focused, highly competitive, very supportive group of guards there. So, and then we'll figure out who plays the best, and then we'll go from there.
Brad, Young is 18 years old. You obviously coached a lot of 18-year-old players in college. How much of a factor was that you know how to coach these kind of young players?
Marcus isn't much older. A lot of our guys aren't much older. We've got a pretty young group when you factor in all the guys that are under contract for us next year. So not a huge, never was a factor in deciding whether or not to take them. We wanted to take the best players at each spot.
Brad, Dan Roach from WBZ, just kind of playing off what you said, kind of big picture with going through the whole process and where you've been and where you are right now. How pleased are you that you were able to get these 2 particular players?
Yeah, I think first of all, we're very pleased that we were able to get these 2 guys where we got them, and when you looked at the draft, like going in tonight, I had both of these guys in my top 11, and so I think that at the end of the day, you feel really good about that. That said, I look at it more from the big picture of there's a whole group, and these guys are now parts of that group, and we've all got to move in one direction, and I feel good that that's happening. I've said over the last couple weeks that our young guys are in there often working and doing things the right way and doing things with great pace and doing things together, and there's that's a good thing moving forward.
Brad, Michelle Steele from ESPN. Would you say that next season is still a rebuilding year after tonight?
That's going to have to be a question for all of you, and maybe you pose that question to management or pose that question to people that aren't coaching, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you're a coach and when you're in the midst of it, you're trying to win every game, you're trying to win the next game, and you don't look at anything as rebuilding, you look at the next opportunity. As long as you can prepare and strive and do your best, it's hard for me to say that because I don't want to sell our team short.
Brad, Adam Kopp from the Sports Hub. Was the current roster construction considered at all as you guys were making the picks, or was it strictly looking at your board, like you said you had in both of your top 11?
The only thing that I would say that we were at least discussing coming into play with the second pick was perimeter scoring. So I guess the current roster construction, you might say that played a role in that. But at the end of the day, no, it didn't. We wanted to take the best players available that we thought were the best players available for us.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, folks.